Welcome everybody to the ALCTS virtual pre-conference, Creating Successful Scholarly Communication with an Institutional Repository. This is a three-part virtual pre-conference that we're holding this week. We have the first session yesterday, and the third session will be tomorrow at this time. I'm Rita Sinha, co-chair of the ALCTS Program Committee, and your host for this presentation. Today's session is Creating Scholar Commons, a case study in publishing repository success. Our presenters today are Ann Taylor of B-Press and Rebel Cummings-Sauls from the University of South Florida in Tampa. Ann is the Director for Outreach and Scholarly Communication at B-Press, and Rebel is the Library Operations Coordinator for Scholar Commons. Before we start, there are a few things to keep in mind for today's presentation. First of all, if you wish to comment on today's presentation using Twitter, you may use the hashtag that you see on your screen. We won't be monitoring the Twitter feed, however, during the session. If you have questions for the presenters, please type them into the question box on your screen. We've set aside time at the end of the presentation for questions, and in between the two speakers, we'll take one or two questions. Any questions that we can't get to during this presentation, we will answer offline and send the answers to everybody who's attending. Today's webinar does not have capabilities. Also, if you want to reduce the toolbar on your screen, you can click on the red arrow so that you can see the slides a little bit better. This webinar is being recorded, and you'll receive an email with links to the recording, to the presentation slides, and an evaluation within 2 days. Finally, regarding that evaluation form, we hope you'll take time to fill it out. The feedback that you provide us helps our committee and ALCTS plan future events. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Ann Taylor.
Thanks, Rita. Let's see. Let me make sure I've. There we go. So hopefully everybody can see my screen okay. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. As Rita mentioned, my name is Ann Taylor, and I'm the Director of Outreach and Scholarly Communication at B-Press. And my group essentially works with Digital Commons subscribers to collect stories and best practices and then share those back out across the community so that people, have resources and things like that to be successful with their repository and publishing initiatives. So we work with around 350 institutions on their IR initiatives. And so we've had the opportunity to gather and aggregate a ton of information on how they are achieving success. So from this and from speaking more in depth with some of those institutions, such as the University of South Florida, we've written a few case studies and identified some basic best practices, which we've written up in the form of a roadmap document. And I'll put my email up at the end of this. If you're interested in either one of those, you can just shoot me an email and I'll send them along. We're just getting those finished up. So University of South Florida has an incredibly successful initiative and has developed a really broad array of collections and services aimed at meeting real needs on their campus. But it took a lot of time and work to get there. So today Rebel and I will talk a little bit about what they did and how to become such a great service. To give you just a little bit of background, USF joined the Digital Commons community in 2009. They already had 2 journals, Numeracy and Studia UBB Geologia, running on single journal instances of Digital Commons and plan to migrate them over to a single full license. In 2010, Scholar Commons came under the purview of Academic Resources and its director, Todd Chavez. And at that point, Todd realized that they could be doing a lot more with the platform in addition to publishing journals. So in order to get things up and running quickly, they signed on for an IR Kickstart with us, a service which at the time included a variety of components that I'll talk a little bit more about later. So Rebel came on board in the summer of 2011 and was instrumental in the rebranding and relaunch of the IR. And since then, they've continued to grow tremendously and extend their service offerings far beyond their original goals. In today's presentation, Rebel and I will both talk a little bit about how they've achieved that success, and I'd like to map it roughly onto the framework of best practices we identified from talking to USF and many, many others. And in addition to telling their story, I'd also really like to share a few tips on how you too can achieve a high level of success, regardless of size or staffing or anything like that. So this framework has sort of 6 essential points that we found fundamental to successful IR initiatives. So in my portion of the presentation, I'll talk about these first 3, setting goals, taking full advantage of the features and services available with your platform, and seeking out new collections and building support. And then in Rebel's portion, she'll sort of talk a little bit more about the second 3, which are getting others in the library on board with the initiative, developing an outreach and marketing strategy, and reporting success. So we'll start with setting goals, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is to set some goals, no matter how general, as they'll help to guide your decision making throughout the process. Now those goals may change as situations change, and that's okay, but it's good to have something concrete to shoot for and to make sure that they tie in with larger institutional goals. University of South Florida had some specific goals when we began working with them. Their first goal and initial reason for looking at Digital Commons was to migrate their journals over to a single integrated platform and also to be able to start and host new journals. They already had started 2 journals, Numeracy and Studia UBB Geologia, on single Digital Commons journal licenses and wanted to bring them together onto one single full Digital Commons license so that they could better support them as well as publish additional journals as the need arose. But as they looked at the software, they realized that moving to a full Digital Commons license also gave them access to additional features like book, event, and image galleries. So they started thinking about hosting other types of content as well, faculty research, an undergraduate conference they held on campus, an environmental sustainability book series, and nearly 3,000 electronic theses and dissertations that were getting very low visibility in a statewide system at the time. In looking into the additional types of content they could collect and showcase, Todd Chavez, the Director of Academic Resources, and his team realized that that might help them solve another problem on campus that he kept encountering, a significant duplication of effort in tracking and sharing research. And when we interviewed him for the case study, one of the things Todd said was, I would find multiple websites for one project. Co-PIs would be paying grad students to maintain each individual website. There was no archival strategy. They didn't optimize websites for discovery purposes. There was a lot of replication of effort at high cost for minimal or confusing output. This was really compelling and allowed them to do something crucial, which is to align their goals with larger library and university goals and make sure that their stakeholders were aware of them. To senior leaders, for instance, Todd presented the initiative as a cost saver that would cut down on duplication of efforts. For faculty and departments, in addition to reducing time and effort tracking and sharing research, the initiative was generally tied to things like helping them meet funding requirements or increasing the discoverability and thus the use of their research. This increase in discoverability of faculty research was another major goal at that time, and I'll talk a little bit more about how they chose where to start with this in just a minute. Those were the initial big picture goals for USF. In order to successfully pursue those larger goals, they set some smaller ones as well. So for instance, they knew they wanted to gather a breadth of content in the beginning so that several different departments and groups as well as content types would be represented. So in considering where to start, Todd and his team thought carefully about which departments and individuals would be most strategic. Whom could they get on board at the beginning that would be an important stakeholder? That's one of the goals that guided them when choosing departments for the Kickstart service and in their early outreach efforts. And of course, they knew they wanted to expand the publishing services that they could offer and bring more journals on board. The goals have certainly changed over time as needs have changed, but each fiscal year, Rebel prepares a report that demonstrates how they're doing with those goals. I really like her reports a lot because they include both quantitative as well as qualitative data. She pulls a lot of numbers, but she also includes anecdotes that put the numbers in context. These reports are then shared with others, including deans and the provost. She'll talk a little bit more about this during her portion of the presentation, and I actually have a link to it in a later slide. So a second piece is really taking advantage of your platform. In talking about setting goals, I've already talked a little bit about how University of South Florida planned to take full advantage of the platform and services offered. I'll just say a few more words about it here and then move on to how they initially built collections and support. The key point I want to make here is just this. Be aware of the full range of features and services offered by your platform. As in the case of USF, you may realize that you can serve even more needs than you originally thought. They just started by wanting to consolidate their journals on a single platform, but now all of those journals, I believe, maybe with the exception of one, I'm not sure, are also using the peer review tools that are available through the system. But they also quickly moved on to capturing books, conferences, faculty publications, ETDs, images, oral histories, data, reports, administrative documents, as well, of course, as more journals. They knew, too, that the platform could really increase discoverability for their collections, for example, for the ETDs that were getting very low usage in another system. And then Rebel is in regular contact with us so she can stay abreast of new developments as well as find out how Digital Commons might be able to accommodate a steady stream of new and different content. So regardless of what platform you're using, do stay aware of what you have available to you, because that will allow you to fully take advantage of your software and hopefully meet even more needs on your campuses. If you're using Digital Commons, be sure to check out our blog and reference materials and stay in regular touch with the consulting services team because they know the system inside and out and can make recommendations on how to accommodate a wide variety of content types. And just really quickly, here are a couple of resources. These are actually open to anyone, not just Digital Commons subscribers, that may give you some ideas on how you might serve some unmet needs on your campuses. So again, I don't want to spend too much time here as this may differ depending on what platform you're using or considering. So let's move on to building collections and support. For this piece, University of South Florida signed on with us for a very early version of our Kickstart service. But I've got to say that the real key to their success in building such great collections and a solid foundation of support has been strategic thinking combined with a lot of pounding the pavement. They have been outstanding at both of these things, and these are the two factors that we found typically contribute most to the success of a repository initiative and to overall scholarly communications initiatives. I can speak to a small amount of what they did in combination with the work that we did as part of the Kickstart, but I'll leave most of this to Rebel. Probably the #1 best activity you can do to create interest and buy-in for the IR, in which USF does really well, and to grow your collections and learn about new needs, is to really get out and talk to people. And don't just talk to them about what they can do for you, i.e. what content they can give you for your repository. Instead, ask them what problems and needs they have that you may be able to help solve. Talk to them from their point of view, not yours. Again, this is something that USF has just done really great work with. I know that, for example, when Todd Chavez goes out and talks to people to different departments, he'll frame services in ways that appeal most to the specific needs that that department actually has. And I think that that has been really instrumental. So apart from that, you might try a lot of the things that we did with South Florida for their Kickstart. It's actually stuff that a majority of folks have already done on their own, and is really great for anyone looking for a way to build up some nice core collections to bring on board initial stakeholders and to begin to identify additional needs they may be able to serve. The work that we did for University of South Florida consisted of 5 basic components. It was one of our earliest kickstarts, so it's changed a little bit since then, but I'll talk a little bit about each of the components. So first we conducted an environmental survey of a number of strategic departments on campus. We were essentially looking for content that may or may not already exist online that might be a good fit for the repository. Things like faculty-run journals, conferences and other events, student projects, technical reports, administrative documents, things like that. This is definitely something I'd recommend as a good first step. Find people in departments that have content that might be able to benefit from, perhaps increased discoverability or maybe easier organization and maintenance, for instance. In addition to the environmental survey for those departments, we also conducted citation searches and checked rights on those citations. We worked with USF to create permission letters to faculty who had articles that were allowed by publishers to be posted in their final published format, then posted those on their behalf. This is something that I know a lot of institutions are doing, is doing these citation searches and rights checking on behalf of faculty, and that seems to have worked really, really well. USF also has selected works, which are the personal researcher pages that we offer, so we additionally created those for faculty whose work had been uploaded. Again, this is something that we find a lot of people in the community are doing and that works really well, locating and posting articles on behalf of faculty. It's a great way to get faculty publications into the IR without faculty having to do very much. We all know they're very busy. They have a lot of things on their mind. And in Digital Commons, this means that those faculty will start receiving monthly download reports, which we've often seen lead to faculty wanting to get even more of their work posted. A fourth piece was batch importing the nearly 3,000 ETDs that they had in another system. This was a little bit of a project, but allowed them to very quickly represent a large number of departments and schools in the repository, I think nearly 70 different schools and departments. Downloads on these objects increased about 2,700% in just 4 months, from just under 4,000 downloads in February of 2011 to over 100,000 downloads in June of 2011. And then the last piece of the Kickstart was an on-site visit to South Florida so that we could provide training for library staff and specifically for the liaison team in repository outreach, marketing, and other related issues, copyright, different things like that. We found that this was really the most valuable thing that we could offer, so our new Kickstart offering is actually a 2-day site visit with a menu of presentations from which an institution can choose. Before I turn it over to Rebel to talk about marketing and outreach efforts and a bunch of other good stuff, let me just leave you with a few thoughts about what you might be able to do over the summer to either kickstart or build steam for your own initiative. So first of all, do you already have some goals for your IR initiative? If you do, great. You might write them up and post them somewhere where everybody can see them and refer to them. If not, you might come up with a few. They can be both qualitative and quantitative. For instance, you may want to have 4 different content types or talk to 10 different faculty members, or you may just want to get at least one great success story on a particular collection. Second thing you can do is an environmental survey. If you haven't done one already, consider choosing a few departments to start with and look on their websites for things the IR may be a good solution for. If you have already conducted an environmental survey, consider doing another one. New content is constantly being generated. New needs are constantly arising. And I'd actually recommend resurveying departments in some fashion, whether formally or informally, pretty regularly. This is something that your liaison or reference librarians may be able to help with. And then you can also pick a faculty member or 2 to meet with, have your service offerings ready to talk about, but most of all, be willing to listen to their needs. Their current needs may be met by other library services, but letting them know you're there to help means that that they may come back for more and eventually with some projects that the repository may be able to help with. And then lastly, you might go ahead and start planning your annual report. If you don't already write one, you might consider creating one. Rebels is a great example. include your goals, your accomplishments, numbers, stories, anything you think would be valuable in sharing with others the success of your initiative. So we'll soon be publishing the case study on USF as well as the roadmap document. If you'd like a copy of either one, please let me know and I'd be happy to send them along as soon as they're ready. And then also here's a link to University of South Florida's annual report, which is a really nice example and a really good place to see, what kind of goals they're setting, how they're accomplishing things, and get some ideas. So we have time, I think, to take a couple of questions if we have any before I turn it over to Rebel. Rita, do we have any questions at the moment?
Not yet, but if there are any questions for Anne, please type them into the question box and I'll read them off. And again, we will have time after the next presentation also. We're trying to leave about 10-15 minutes for questions at the end. So I'll just wait a couple of seconds in case there are any questions that come in. But it doesn't, there's one question, a couple more. Is the Kickstart service exclusive to Digital Commons customers?
At the moment, yes, because a large portion of it involves working specifically with our system. But I would definitely invite you to take a look at the resources that are available on our resource pages. Let me actually go back to the slide with that on there. Oops, there it is. So on our resource pages, we actually have just a ton of stuff that's open and available to anybody to use, including our collaboratory, which has examples of annual reports and brochures and all kinds of good stuff that people have created and used to help with their initiatives.
This particular attendee said they're on DSpace. So this next question is, does BPress offer advice and guidance on copyright?
Copyright, basically that's something that we've looked into quite a lot because, yeah, exactly, we have a lot of folks that are constantly running into things like that. And so what we've really done is we've just kind of looked around to see how people in the community are addressing copyright questions and collected together a bunch of resources. So again, on our resources page, there's a section on toolkits, and there's actually a copyright toolkit that we have available. And then also for, if you're a Digital Commons subscriber, you can also give us a call anytime, either the outreach team here or our consulting services team, and we're happy to provide, whatever we have available. But I definitely take a look at that copyright toolkit. It has some really nice resources.
So one last question before we move on. Can BPress migrate content from DSpace?
Yes, that is something that we have done before, so that is a possibility.
Okay. So I think we're going to save any other questions for the end of the presentation, and I'm going to turn it over to Rebel's presentation now.
All right, thank you.
Okay, everybody should be able to see my slides now. Yep, okay, good. Okay, so with the assistance from the Kickstart from BPress that Anne just mentioned, we did have a few collections when I came on board. With one collection in particular, graduate thesis and dissertations having rapidly growing downloads, we felt that we had a proof of concept to show the findability of items housed within Scholar Commons. However, Scholar Commons had no policy and procedure documentation. We had a very basic site, and no one on campus really knew we were there. In order to get more for more individuals, we needed to get them to say yes to us. They needed to know how to use us, want to use this, and more importantly, know that we actually exist. So moving from a small selected target audience to a campus-wide market, it was necessary to publicly document information about the purpose of our initiative and so that we would not have to answer every question in person. We also needed to let our affiliates see what we were actually striving to achieve. Establishing that we say yes to an open access scholarly communication and research was very important. And most importantly, we needed to make sure our users knew how to add and remove content. Adding policies and procedures to our site helped us to have ready aids for incoming customers. With making the move from a journal host to a full institutional repository, my screen went back. Can everybody still see my application, my screen? Okay. Sorry, I don't know what happened. Resume slideshow. Okay, sorry guys. So with making the move from a journal host to a full institutional repository, we also wanted to have a vision and a mission. We set our mission to develop and encourage all research at our university. To accomplish our mission, we would assist in all areas of the submission process, provide long-term preservation for our community, and align our services with our university goals. Our vision is to become a vehicle to drive research communication across disciplines and the globe. Before officially launching the IR, we needed an updated rights statements to provide further and strengthened protection for the university and our authors. To do this, I went through a review of several other vision sites and many articles to compare and contrast our needs. I also felt that it was very important to create a central contact for Scholar Commons. This way we can have all the communication be recorded in one location while being able to be reviewed by several all at once. Finally, I created personalized training for internal admins, promoters, and users that featured our personalized branding and support services. I also gathered the additional training resources provided by BPress. These aids were great in later helping our internal and liaison libraries to become more familiar with not only the system, but myself personally. I think that we all can agree that a website design and layout can make a big difference in the way our users will view our efforts. After surveying past users of the site, it was determined that our initial site design was not relaying the prestige that we wanted. In order to enhance our site, we made several changes. First, we determined a central logo you see at the top here, the Scholar Commons logo. We provided the banner with the research, publish, discover, share, and collaborate, and colors consistent with the then only promotional material, our brochure. Our layout was also adjusted to reduce redundant links, and we added a rotating gallery to push campus research efforts. The biggest impact on our visitor change, seen through our Google Analytics, was an added area to highlight USF Tampa Library produced publications. At the time of our launch, we just had our journals listed out, but now our collections have grown so large that we've actually listed these by categories. So now I want to go to a poll real quick, and I want to poll the audience. Is the poll open? Yes, okay. So I just want to ask you guys, would you want to use your own site? We got a little over half responded, so I'll give you a few more seconds for you guys to respond. Okay. Looks like we got most of you guys did vote, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now. So last second. Okay, so you can see that the poll showed that 63% of you guys would actually use your site, but 25% say no. So maybe a possible redesign is something that you guys can look into to help build your repository and support for your initiative. Most of our fall 2011 semester was used to push our initiative's name and mission. We kickstarted this launch with our first introduction coming from our Dean and Director at the university's main Council of Deans meeting. We then spread our message throughout the campus, but maybe more importantly, the library. It is very important for those who work in your library to know where to send users when they are potential users or contributors. After the Council of Dean meeting, we immediately followed up with an article and a system-wide announcement in the USF News. We reached out to internal librarians through department and library-wide meetings, training, and presentations. We were also able to promote the initiative on the library webpage with the library newsfeed and a highlighted initiative area on the library's front page. Working with one of our internal librarians, we were also able to feature the initiative in our internal newsletter, Off the Shelf. So after our initial official launch, we want to talk about growth. How did it happen? In addition to the previously mentioned efforts, there were several things that contributed to making growth happen over the time. One of the first things was the assistants. So we had the one director, Todd Chavez, who assisted heavily in the pilot and continues to administratively support the IR while managing many data-related duties, including our Coral grant. We have 3 professional A&P employees at half-time FTE. Originally, there was just 1 employee at half-time percentage supporting this initiative. Then USF decided to bring in two new employees, including myself, and at half support to assist with the OA journals and Scholar Commons. Honestly, my role has grown to a majority of time supporting Scholar Commons. Desperately needing assistance with spreadsheets to manage incoming material, I placed a call for volunteers with our library school and received 1 volunteer. Employees within the library that I had presented to knew that I needed volunteers, and they also sent people my way. This resulted in 3 other volunteers. I'm also happy to report that our first volunteer has now been able to be employed at our USF Schimberg Library. Needing additional help, I also asked for a federal work study student, which I've been able to get each semester either at a quarter or half-time FTE. With major projects, I have been given also a part-time OPS to reduce workloads. In addition, we have 1 library support staff who devotes half her time to supporting our open access journal collection. And for our GIS and data services, they are also contributors to our scholarly communication team with 3 A&P and 1 half-time OPS member. So also one of our biggest areas of growth or abilities to grow is through our, our internal librarians. We build on established and previous relationships, even if it was just 1 previous encounter. Outreach with liaisons to their departments. Ask to speak to their faculty, even if just for 5 minutes. This has resulted in 2 conferences, 2 series, and many faculty publications. Making connections with internal librarians meant that they knew who to send people to when they had tough questions. They also felt comfortable bringing me into their discussions with their faculty and admins so that we could better serve their college's needs. With your next open access event, invite people who are not using your services but are participating in the OA movement so that you can find out, did they say no to your services or just not know about you? With this move, we found a journal editor, Laura Runge, who we were able to help solve many of her problems she was having with her OA journal by moving her onto our platform. We successfully moved AVO onto our platform, and they have been doing great in the digital commons system. These OA events also made it clear that we needed to find out how to reach them in the beginning of their process. We learned to contact the people who are responsible for the services within their individual colleges and show them how our services can ease their workloads. These events also produced much material that had ongoing use. So maybe they couldn't make it to that day's event, but maybe one day they can say yes. And when they do, that counts as a download for you. We also promote our events beyond campus, marketing to our community and national websites. So anywhere and everywhere that will index our metadata, I will add our information. While afterwards, I continue to check to ensure that it is updated accurately. I find that this has been a huge, kind of push to have visitors come to our site. We can see this in Google Analytics. You can see here in our word cloud that we've deposited or been harvested by Google, NDLTD, OATD, OCLC, DOAJ, DOI, CUR, and the MLA directory. So I think one of the biggest factors of our success have been our responsiveness and attention. Having the central contact helped to ensure that everyone's needs were being met. It has been beneficial to our users to know that they have one point of contact that will respond, and you do not have to continually update contact information. Good first-time experiences led to second, third, and fourth deposits. Word of mouth to colleagues and friends can bring you even further contacts. One of my best examples is when I spoke to a person who handled the conferences in the College of Arts and Sciences and received 4 conferences from that same area that same semester. Persistence and reliability will turn a maybe into a yes. When you go out to speak to your community members, find out from them who is currently doing what you can do for them, and what is it that they really want to do. So finally, once you've grown and you have some success, you actually want to report about it. But maybe the past year doesn't look so pretty. It's still important to gather all the information about your personnel, your promotion, your collections, stats, and most importantly, your goals for the future. Our institutional repository reports have been a great source of information as we grow and adjust. Sample ways that I've reported our success have been through the Digital Commons usage reports in Google Analytics, which are routinely shared with our supporting institutions and affiliations. Marketing and promotion through all available library, university, state, regional, and national channels. And our fiscal year, end of year, and special reports are shared with our dean and our provost. And we also publish our fiscal year IR report on Scholar Commons, as Ann posted earlier, for anyone who would like to review. So where are we off to now? At this time, we are depositing data dumps from ProQuest, which require manual manipulation for uploads into Scholar Commons. We are working with the graduate school to test the Digital Commons platform for direct submissions of our ETDs. We hope to use a sample of student submissions this summer with full deposits beginning in fall of 2014. We are going to the US ETDA 2014 conference at the end of this year, where we will discuss the great success of our ETD collection and the potential and current ways students are marketing their publications in this digital age. So one of the other things that we are pushing right now is our conferences services, because they offer us many benefits, including free designs, which I'm happy to report are now available with our journals. But unlike our journals, conferences limit time frames on staff demands. They have continued success with full text downloads beyond the event dates, and they provide us with high visibility of our research events on campus. So now I'm going to toss the mic back over to Ann, where she's going to discuss BPress's current Data Pioneers pilot.
Yeah, thanks, Rebel. University of South Florida is participating in a program that we just started this year called the Data Pioneers, and it's basically a partnership between BPress and a group of about 15 schools to help us all understand more about data and how we can help you all support it better. And so, as organizers of the program, we're providing resources, guidance, and mostly facilitation. And then the pioneer schools are sort of proactively seeking out data sets on their campus and sharing their experiences and feedback with the community. So they're all sort of the people that are participating are meeting virtually on a regular basis to collaborate, to share resources and best practices. And they're talking about all kinds of things from building outreach strategies to conducting a data interview to developing effective showcases for data collections. And so, and the schools that are participating are not just large research institutions. We also have several smaller schools as well, because we find that data sets are sort of coming in all shapes and sizes from all kinds of places. And we are developing a bunch of resources out of this and encouraging the participants to also develop resources. So we'll you know, keep everybody posted about those. So I don't know, Rebel, if you want to talk a little bit about what you guys have been doing with data.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with our participation in the data pilot, we have completed a review of our services here in the library and also completed a review of other services completing similar services to what we offered. We also conducted a survey of 5 targeted and potential colleges, which resulted in 66 respondents. These results have also been shared with our dean and provost, and additionally, the survey was able to provide us with follow-ups for interviews and projects, so future contacts. This was a great way to provide potential users who will be depositing with us. So that was a good thing for us for the data pilot. And so I guess I'm going to just go to the contact and questions. So here's our contact information, guys, if you have any additional questions after today's event. And that's it for me. If anybody has any questions, you can type them in now.
So we have a question for Rebel. What % is deposited by the user/author and what % by library staff?
Right now, I would say it's probably 20% user, 80% me, mainly me and some other library staff. I have, when we have reoccurring deposits, like our WUSF has a first choice newsletter, and our student government, they have redeposits every semester. So with those areas, I've gone and we've located an admin or admins within that area, and I've gone through training with those people, so we've added them as admins for that collection and that series, and they're able to add those material for us. So the ones who are reoccurring, we try to push into locating an admin so that we can train them for them to do that on their own. For those who are maybe like a one-time suck or something like that, we'll usually pull that in for them.
And another question for Rebel, does your institution have a deposit policy or a requirement? For example, if project support came from public funds?
Actually, as part of our official launch process, we kind of went through that on whether or not we were going to try to push for a policy, and our team decided that we were not going to push for a policy. And as things have kind of developed in the copyright world since then, it's kind of been a good move for us, because many of the publishers will allow a green archive, but not if it's mandated by the school. So because we don't mandate it, we're allowed to put full text of many articles that we would not be allowed to if we had mandated that.
Thanks. And another question, are data deposits a separate function within the IR, and is it a separate piece that BPress offers? So question for both of you, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean,
I can just go ahead, Ann.
You go ahead first.
Okay, I was just going to say on our end, it kind of depends, and we found also with the data pilot project that it kind of depends on the size of the data. With things that are smaller, we're able to ingest them directly into the repository. And then if it's kind of like with us, we have a lot of GIS centered data, and the repository doesn't actually support the GIS yet. So what we will do is add a record to those and link out to the GIS service. One of our best examples of that is like with our thesis and dissertations. We have 2 now where the student published a thesis and then our GIS team got with that student, created a GIS system around that study, and then we now link from the thesis to the GIS, back to the GIS record and everything. So it does pretty good.
Yeah, it was interesting because we actually did a little bit of research into data and data files and what they were and how big they were and all that kind of stuff. And it was what we found is that you know, just from some random sampling, that the largest percentage are actually even less, you know, probably less than even 1 gigabyte, which was kind of interesting. And so in Digital Commons, data is, you know, the system can accommodate any discrete file type up to 2 gigabytes in size, and we just made an announcement that we can now offer 10 times more free storage than previously. So there's a lot of space and all that kind of good stuff. So it's all just part of the platform and comes with the license. But we've also found that in the cases of, you know, extremely large data, oftentimes there is a disciplinary repository or something like that that's specifically built to accommodate that kind of data, in which case a lot of people will put a record in the repository and then link out to it. I think USF, has some of that.
So we have plenty of time. Are there any other questions or comments? Anne and Rebel, did you perhaps have any questions or comments for the group?
I don't think so. Again, if anybody's interested in any of the links or resources that I mentioned, feel free to email me. I think Rebel still has my email address up. Rebel, do you have anything else?
Oh, we got one more question.
I just wanted to say, you know, if you're out there and you needed any assistance or, you know, guidelines after this, we're always willing to help as well. So don't feel like you can't reach out to us after.
Okay. So we have a couple more. Does bpress offer pulling in statistics from sites other than bpress or Digital Commons?
That is a good question. I think it depends on what kind of statistics you're talking about. We do integrate with, for example, altmetrics and Plum Analytics,
okay.
if that's the kind of thing you're thinking about. Other than that, I guess I'd probably need a better idea of maybe what you're specifically thinking. But I'd be happy to talk more offline if you want to shoot me an email.
So the next question is, how did you involve university administration in this process? So that would be for you, Rebel, maybe.
I think we kind of hid from it. No. We didn't actively involve them, I guess you could say. We did do the Council of Deans at the official launch, which had all the deans and provosts present there. So that's when they kind of got the official rollout, the spiel about the initiative and everything. And we got interest right away in that meeting to have like the CV, the Vita Bank, that the academic resources for the university, to be pulled into Scholar Commons, which I finally got the data and we're working on processing that now. So there wasn't, I know there wasn't like a strict control that came from the administration. No need for an immediate publication committee to be put together like I've seen at some universities when things have gone up. So I think they just kind of were, you know, kind of made aware about the initiative and the features in our services, and then, you know, we were kind of asked to do, like I said, to pull in the CV Vita Bank.
And another question again, Rebel, are librarians faculty at USF? Did they hold faculty appointments?
Most of the librarians, most of the librarians are faculty. Yes, I'm not technically a librarian yet, so I don't hold a faculty position. I hold an AMP position.
Okay. So the next question is, how do you get indexing of DOAJ indexes ingested in your IR? And
yes, it's via the OAI.
Yeah, PMH protocol.
Yeah. That's exactly how it's done. We with DOAJ. Oh wait, with DOAJ we actually, yes, they ingest us through the OAI. We provide all the information. We're actually having to resubmit all of our journals right now because they just did they just started a new reapplication process, a new process to kind of categorize the journals. So we have to resubmit for all of our journals, but yes, they do index based on the AOI or the OAI.
And just in case we're not all familiar, generally what's the OAI / PMH protocol? Just an application?
It's an open access initiative, I think is what the OAI stands for, or something like that protocol. It's just where your metadata is open through the URL. It's something that BPress actually provides with the Digital Commons system.
Okay. So, are there any other questions or comments? If not, maybe we'll wrap the Q&A session. And again, you've got the contact information for the speakers, so you can contact them offline as well. So if could wrap up, just a few notes about additional hang on just a second here. Oops. So I wanted to remind everybody that we do have the third part of this three-part virtual pre-conference, and it's tomorrow. You can still sign up for it. And before I talk about some of the other events, I just wanted to thank Ann and Rebel for their presentations and sharing their experience with establishing an institutional repository. They provided us with some practical ways to establish a framework and ways to engage and promote the service to faculty and others on campus. I want to thank all of you who have attended. We hope you found today's presentation useful. You're going to soon receive an online evaluation form, and we'd appreciate it if you take a few minutes to respond to the questions and return the form to us so that we can use your comments and suggestions to plan other ALCTS events and continue education webinars. So there's also another virtual pre-conference next week. This one is called Library Preservation Today, and again it's a three-part preservation introduction to preservation. This is modeled after an online course that ALCTS offers. There are details about the pre-conference and registration information at the link that's at the bottom of your screen. And if you're attending ALA, we have a few pre-conferences that I believe are open for on-site registration at this point. The first one is a day-and-a-half long course on fundamentals of collection assessment, and it's modeled after an online course that's been offered for a few years by ALCTS. We also have another day-long pre-conference on statistics and reports, data-driven decision-making, and a half-day pre-conference on streaming media. Streaming media passes the tipping point. Now what? And with that, I wanted to thank everybody again, and I want to thank Eva Sorrell and Vicki. Eva has provided our technical support for today, and Eva's in the ALCTS office providing a lot of moral support. Both of Eva and Vicki have made it possible for these webinars to run smoothly. So thank you again for joining us today. You'll receive a link to the recordings and the slides in a couple of days, and we hope that you'll attend some of our webinars in the future.